Okay, you see on the screen? Okay, hello. Welcome to the second round of the Italian Championship of Debate in English. And we are happy and proud to be here to listen to you and what you have prepared in this preparation time about the following motion. The motion is, this House would abolish the ethical tax for sex workers in the porn industry. Info slide. In Italy, the so-called ethical tax is a 20% surcharge added on top of ordinary income tax applied to earnings derived from the production of or sale of pornographic content. Very well. In a few seconds, my mobile phone will ring, okay? This will mean that you have to tell me if you hear the sound of this ring, okay? It is important because it will mean that the first time it rings, it means that 1 minute is passed, so you can ask for POIs. The second time it will ring, it means that 1 minute is remaining, so you cannot ask for POIs anymore. And okay, can you hear it? Okay, and if you hear it many times ringing, it means that you have to stop your speech. This is for the first 3 speeches. You know that the last speech, the fourth speech, lasts 4 minutes. It will make a sound in the 3rd minute, and it will make many sounds again at the last in the last 4th minute, so at the end of the speech. So, your names, please. I'm going to Fedebater. So, who will be the first speaker for proposition team?
So I will be the first speaker, Filippo Visconti.
Filippo Visconti. Oh, yes. The second speaker for proposition team?
Carlo Spano.
Carlo Spano. Yeah, the third speaker for proposition team?
It will be me, Asia Zenoni.
Zenoni. And the replier?
Still me, Carlo Spano.
Carlo Spano. Okay, and Spano. So I'm going to opposition team. Okay.
Yep.
So first speaker for opposition team.
Me, Paola Traversa.
Paola Traversa. Second speaker for opposition team.
It's me, Lavinia Fuca.
Lavinia Fuca. Third speaker for opposition team.
Me, Gioele Gentile.
Gentile. And replier will be?
Still me, Paola Traversa.
Paola Traversa. Okay. Very well. If there's nothing to say anymore, if Swami and Stefano are okay, if they have not to add anything to this starting of the debate, we can start the debate. Okay, Stefano? Okay, Swami? Okay, so please, first speaker from proposition team, please take the floor. Thank you.
Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. According to the Italian Constitution, Italy is a democratic republic that is founded on work. So any kind of work that is considered legal. Today we are discussing a very important problem, and that is being discussed a lot in our society, which is the problem of the ethical tax of the pornographic industry, and specifically for sex workers. But first of all, I wanted to specify that today we are talking about Italy because that's what the info slide says. So ethical tax is defined only in the Italian state. So what exactly are sex workers? because we have to define who are we talking about. So sex workers are all the people that are involved in the production and sale of every pornographic content, which means not only the actors that are actually depicted and represented in the content, but also the people that produce it and the people who manage the websites that where these contents are shared. So it's a team of people, not only the actors. And these people together with the means of production create the porn industry that we're talking about. So now let's focus on the main point, the ethical tax. This, as the info slide says, it's a 25% addition in taxes that must be paid on the production and sale of pornographic content. First of all, I would like to analyze the name of this tax that actually tells a lot. It's called ethical tax because according to the government that established this tax, this has the role of granting the ethic of work, and so recognizing that according to the government, the sex work is not ethical. And so this tax is a way to rebalance the situation of ethics in sex work. However, this doesn't have a basis because there's no reason why we should consider sex work unethical. And I will talk more about it in my first argument. So now let's analyze what are the stakeholders that are involved in this motion. The stakeholders, as I said, is the whole porn industry. So of course, the actors that are paid for their performance in the content, then the producers, the directors, and the people behind the websites that share this type of contents. But that's not all. We also have another stakeholder that is very important, which is the audience, the people that actually watch these contents, because the removal of the tax will also have an impact on the audience, because if we remove the tax, then the industry has more money for itself, and so more money to invest in the quality of the work and of the contents that they produce. So now that I analyzed the stakeholders and the problem that we're discussing, I would like to present to you the team line of my team as a proposition team. So we think that we should abolish the ethical tax for sex workers in the porn industry because, first of all, removing this tax would mean to acknowledge that sex work is morally equal to all other legal jobs. Then, second of all, we think that the removal of this tax would grant more money to the industry, and so more welfare and money that can be invested in, of course, the quality of the contents and on, for example, health checks for the actors. And then for the third argument, we think that removing this tax would make... Yes?
Don't you think that a tax actually guarantees some psychological sanitary services to the sex workers, actually?
Well, I'm saying that if we remove the tax, then the industry has more money to be invested, of course. And so this results in more checks in the on the people that are involved in the actions, and more money to be invested in the quality of these contents. And so for our third argument, we think that removing this tax would make this job equally economically valid as a means of self-sustainment for the people that actually do it. So now I will move on to the development of our first argument, which affirms that removing the ethical tax would mean to acknowledge and recognize sex work as as a morally equal job compared to all the other jobs in our society. So let's start again from the name of the tax. It's called ethical tax because obviously it talks about ethics. This is imposed because the government that imposes this tax thinks I refuse. Thinks that this job is not ethical, and so this tax, which is an economic element, is there to rebalance the situation. However, as I said before, there's no reason why we should consider this job unethical. And why is that? So what exactly is something that is unethical? Something is unethical is if it either damages other people or the people that do the action. But first, I refuse. As for the other people, not the ones who commit the action, they are not harmed, because if someone wants to watch these contents, then they can go on and do it if they have the legal age, if they are past 18 years old. And if they don't want to do it, then they just can ignore these contents that are present in very specific websites and platforms, not on every one of them. And for the people that do these actions, they voluntarily do this. They are not forced to do this, because in that case it's called abuse and it's not a legal job. And so there's no harm for anyone, which means that sex work cannot be considered unethical. And so the only thing that is still making sex work a taboo, a thing that should not be talked about, is the tax and its name, because it leads people to see sex work as an unethical job and something that should not be watched and should not be done. On the other side, if we remove this tax, then people will start to change their opinion, because they will actually see that this job, not everyone has to accept doing this job, but they have to recognize that it's not harmful for anyone. And so if someone wants to do this, and if it's legal, then they should just go on and continue doing it. So moving towards the conclusion of my speech, with my speech today, I provided to you a definition of what we're talking about, an analysis of the problem of the ethical tax in the pornographic industry. I analyzed the stakeholders of this action that we're talking about, and then I explained to you why sex work is not unethical and why we should actually stop this taboo. First of all, with the removal of the so-called ethical tax. And with this, I conclude. Thank you.
8 minutes and 1 second. If Stefano and Swami are okay? Yes, you are. So let's go to the first speaker from opposition team. Please. Should be so yes, very well.
I'm
want.
Okay. Just a minute. Okay. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1, now. So good afternoon, honorable judges and our proposition team. I'm Paola Traversa, and I'm the first speaker of the opposition team. So I want to start my speech by rebutting what the first speaker of the proposition team has said. So we first of all, we do not consider we consider sex workers equal, morally talking, to older workers. But you also have to consider that, you also said that this work, we consider this work unethical, but that's not true. In fact, you just consider a work unethical if it damages other people. So I want to ask you, what about addiction with porn? So you also have to consider that.
PI.
No, I'm sorry. So you first of all have to consider that the ethical taxes do not concern just the ethic problem, but also the sanitary problem, and that's what we will say in our second argument. And then we do not want to ban porn. We just want to maintain a safe environment for the porn industry through the taxes that already exist. And we completely agree on the stakeholders of these motions. So, first of all, the commodification of sex has outrageously stained our society forever. It has created a long-lasting mark that will just stay forever. In this debate, we do not treat pornography as a moral sin to be punished, but as a powerful digital industry that produces both profits and serious risks. The way to
POI.
Yes.
If pornography is not unethical, then what is the reason why there's a tax that is also called ethical tax?
Well, yeah, because I've already said that the ethical taxes do not just concern the ethic problem. They also consider the sanitary problem. So, in fact, as we already accept special and targeted taxation when there are specific and foreseeable harms and externalities. So, I will now continue with what I was saying. The way to prevent the risks from happening is through the imposition of unethical tax. Nowadays, the consumption of porn has knowingly augmented, and it increases day by day. We are used to scenes such as hardcore intercourses. We got used to seeing titles like raping a little cat or she did not want it, but I was craving her. So, a society where the porn industry nurtures perversions for the sake of a click or an economical income. And beware, when we are talking about perversions, we do not refer to simple and innocuous fetish. We something that we consider absolutely legitimate, but real addictions, fantasies that let an adult see an actress dress like a child and let him consume.
POI.
No, I'm sorry. Such aegis material. So, under this framing, the debate is not is sex bad or should porn exist at all. It is about who should pay for the damage and risk for the industrial porn complex, for what the industrial porn complex generates. So, I will now talk about our first argument, that is the ethical value of sex. So, sex is closely tied to intimacy, power dynamics, and in extreme cases, to fetishization of violence and abusive fantasies. Because of how ethically sensitive sex is, the state has the right to regulate an industry that is entirely built around it, thus creating safeguards for workers and consumers. So, the porn industry often commodifies sexual acts that involve the nurturing of violent or degrading fetishes. By doing so, it shapes the societal expectations related to sex, and influences people's understanding of intimacy. So, given the ethical sensitivity, society has the right to ensure that the industry doesn't exploit performers or consumers. The ethical tax does so because it is not a moral condemnation of sex workers, but rather a way for the state to acknowledge that this industry carries a societal and psychological aspects that must be monitored. So, the porn industry's main aim is to turn an act of human intimacy into a product. The state is entitled to regulate it in a different way in order to provide for safety and protection measures needed to guarantee the workers as well as the consumers' well-being. So now, yes.
Then why don't we have an ethical tax on other materials that can cause addiction, for example, social media or drugs or cigarettes?
In nearly exist many taxes that are imposed for ethical problems, such as, for example, cigarettes. So now our third point, effects of the tax on the porn industry. You just have to think that you are a sex worker in the porn industry, and every month or week you must undergo a mandatory health screenings. And so imagine that this tax is now abolished. Overnight, the public health services that fund these protections lose an important part of their funding. So the ethical taxes do not just limit your possibility to earn money from your working activity. They guarantee for sex workers and the whole porn industry safety, dignity, and ethical working conditions. So, just to end up my argument, that's why we firmly believe that abolishing the ethical tax will be a serious ethical mistake. And we strongly oppose the abolition of ethical taxes. That's the end of my speech. Thank you.
8 minutes and 20 seconds. Well, if Swami and Stefano are okay, we can go to the second speaker from proposition team. Stano? Yes, Carlos Spano, yes. Very well. So, when you want.
Okay. If everyone's ready, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. As the second proposition speaker panel in my speech, you can expect 3 main things. First of all, some clarifications about framework and the stakeholders that we are talking about in today's motion. In the second place, some rebuttals about the first opposition speech that has just been given by the opposition team. And lastly, the closing 2 arguments about my team's team light that will give you a clear answer about the main question of today's debate, which is, should we abolish this ethical tax that is imposed on sex workers in Italy today? So, starting on the framework that we as the proposition team bring to you today, we live in a society where a certain part of workers, the sex workers, are discriminated indeedly. So they're discriminated on two main levels, and this is why this tax is not just under any point of view. So first of all, they discriminate ethically the workers, and secondly, they discriminate the worker economically on the practical point of view. So what is the impact? I refuse. What is the impact of the motion that we want to actualize in today's debate? The impact is that, first of all, the actors can work more safely and in a better work environment, which will be my second argument. Also, the producers earn more and can invest in their industry, and also the society benefits from them because they see a more safe environment, a work environment for the actors. So the values that we bring today as the proposition team are free, equality, welfare, and safety. And these are the three pillars that our society must be based on. And what the opposition team is saying is that they grant all these values with their point of view, which is not true. I refuse. Now, let's move on rebuttaling what the other opposition speaker has said during her first speech. First, she said that addiction is the actual problem and that they want a safe environment from us in society. But the point is that they haven't showed us in a single time how they aim to solve the problem that they are bringing today. So the point is that the Italian government is already trying to solve the problem of addiction and controlling the porn industry better from the point of view of the audience by introducing some new laws. A new law has just been passed, which imposes the users that want to visit pornographic sites online to use their speed. A second, I'll take it. So the Italian government is already trying to do something, and this will improve our society. The point is that what do we, as the proposition team, bring you on top of what the opposition team is saying, which is basically nothing. We also bring you safety and improvement for those who work in this industry on top of those who use the products of this industry. Now I'll take the POI. Thank you.
Is in the Italian government the actual government which wanted to apply the imposition of the tax, and so is safeguarding the consumers? Apart from the speed introduction, obviously.
Thank you for the PI. Yes, and it's the same government that it was, as the proposition team, is moving to remove this tax. So if the Italian government removes this tax, with the removal of this tax, we don't have anymore a discrimination for the workers. So it's a right thing to do, because if the Italian government is solving the problem of addiction by removing the tax as the Italian government, we also solve a problem for the sex industry by itself, the problem of discrimination. Also, about the fact that the ethical tax isn't about ethics. It's evident that it is. Also by its name, it may be also about something else, but the point is that the reason why it was created stays in its name, which is ethical tax, and this appears to not be clear to the opposition team. Also, about the first argument, that said that it was based on the ethical value of sex, and they said that taxes protect us. But the point is that taxes aren't protecting us, and so are unnecessary and don't have any effect now. And this is why we want to remove them also. That said it. And also, tax don't protect us. Laws and regulations do, as I refuse, as the government is already doing. So if we look at the status quo and what is already happening, and we add to it the removal of this law, we have regulations about addictions and also welfare for the industry by itself. Now, moving on to the last two arguments of my team. So the second argument is based on the fact that the removal of this tax would make more money available for the industry and the sex workers to improve the working conditions and the safety for the actors. If we think about, I refuse. If we think about how pornographic content is filmed, if it implies sex, it implies the fact that sexually transmitted diseases can be contracted in this act. So these sexually transmitted diseases, also known as STDs, are really dangerous, and the porn companies have to offer tests for the actors that they pay for. So the actors don't pay for these tests, the companies do. So if we think about it, if these companies don't have to pay this tax anymore, they have more money that can be invested in more tests. So we can give more safety to the workers, which is an additional advantage that we as the proposition team bring to you today, and that the opposition team, as in their position, isn't bringing to society. They just want to leave society as it is, and as they have depicted society, it's not a bright point of view. Also, if we think about the places where I refuse, if we think about where these contents are filmed, we also have to think about that these places must be paid. So money is implied in every aspect of the production of these contents, and having more money can increase the workers' welfare on this field. Now, about our last argument, it states that making this removal of the tax would make sex working an equally valuable means of self-maintainment on the practical point of view. Because if we, in our first argument, have said that this would make working in the sex industry on the same level about the ethic field for other jobs, we are saying in our third and last argument that removing this tax would make this work on the economic point of view as efficient as the others. If I am a porn actor and this is what I'm specialized in because it's my talent, it's not right that I am paid less than someone who does another job and that maybe does less works less harder than I do. So it is not right also on the practical point of view and the economical point of view, because it is not right in any way that I earn less if I do a job, because all jobs must be recognized. And this is what we have said starting this debate. It is stated in our constitution in the first article, the most important one. So we as the proposition team are bringing you three main reasons why we should remove this specific tax. The first one is about equality on the ethical and moral point of view. The second one is about the increasing safety and welfare for the actors and the worker in these fields. And the last argument that we're bringing to you is about making this job as equally valuable on the point of view of what you earn. And with this, I conclude my speech. Thank you for the attention.
8 minutes and 12 seconds. Okay. Stefano is okay. Sonny, you're okay? Okay, very well. Let's go to the second speaker from opposition team. Lavinia, please.
Okay, so my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, respected opponent, I am the second speaker of the opposition team. I will first respond to the main points raised by the proposition, clarifying why the reasoning does not hold. And then I will move on to strengthen our own team line, showing why the opposition team offers the most logical, practical, and forward-looking position in this debate, especially regarding safety. So let me begin by addressing the arguments presented by the proposition team. So first, we want to clarify why we do not support the abolishment of the ethical tax. We have missed this point, in our opinion, from the proposition team explanation. So the ethical tax does not want to put the sex worker and their industry on an unethical field, but the tax is meant to protect the industry from other ethical complications. As we already said, we have addiction, we have data privacy, that is one of the arguments that we're going to talk about. And then we have exploitation. That is another critic that I will later on explain. So you agreed with us with the analysis of the stakeholder, which are sex workers, producers, and consumers themselves. And that is something that I will explain later on the third argument. And then I would like to clarify that we have seen that a POI wasn't accepted, and in which we wanted to clarify that the ethical tax, it is also imposed because sex workers and their industry are a sensitive and delicate topic. We do agree on the fact that there are workers just as others, but we cannot deny, and you cannot deny either, that it's a field that it's a bit different from other fields. We have something like addiction, we have exploitation, we have high consumers. That's why we consider it,
POI.
and it's undeniable. Yes?
If the problem is on the consumers, then why would you tax the producers and the actors?
I never said that the problem is on the consumers. I said that a problem could be also consumers. I will later say that the ethical tax brings safety to both sex workers, consumers, and the producers. So the same stakeholders that you analyzed. So since the sex industry is a sensitive and delicate field, we need more protection. We need to understand what are the other ethical complications that we're going to control with the ethical tax. So you pinpointed a meaning that was unethical. So in your opinion, the ethical tax wants to put the sex workers in an unethical point of view, because in your opinion, this brings discrimination. But as we will say, it is actually the opposite. Because one, unethical damages people, but it's basically contradictory, because we are saying that even sex workers are exposed to addiction. So with the ethical tax, we want to prepare this field to this and control it and safeguard it. And then you also mentioned that the Italian government is already doing something. So as we mentioned, we have speed, we have another sort of identification. But we are going to state in our third argument that this type of new identification, this complex multi-passage identification, is not enough. And to end my rebuttal, I will say that you stated wrongly, in our opinion, that if you have more money, in your second point, that if you have more money, then you will have more safety for the sex workers. But you have missed a big point. If you have more money, especially on this industry, we have exploitation. We do not have services guaranteed, because if we apply a tax, and a tax is something that guarantees a service, if we have a tax, we guarantee service. And as you mentioned, we firmly agree on the thing that you said. Sex workers are highly exposed to more needs, such as STD test, because they're more exposed and sensitive to some things. So I will clarify later, but I'm saying it now. More money does not mean more safety for the industry. It means more exploitation. So for these reasons, I will now introduce our third point of the timeline, which is privacy protection of sex workers' well-being. So we previously stated that taxes guarantee a service, and we guarantee a service of privacy protection that nowadays with globalization is needed. So nowadays porn industry is spread throughout the entire internet. Whenever porn video, image, or even voice audio is produced, it undeniably remains on the internet, even if you try to delete it. So with this ethical tax, we protect a sector that is indisputably sensitive and exposed to many threats, because sex workers can be hindered by an improper spread of their data. So think about something that happened recently.
POI.
Yes?
Are there the data about these workers, so these contents diffused in a proper way right now in the status quo?
Sometimes there might be an improper way of spreading, but if you think about it, without the ethical tax, it will be even worse, because the ethical tax is meant to guarantee this a safer spread of privacy. Because if you think about it, I mentioned a case. I was mentioning a case. It has happened recently that Lana Rhodes, a retired U.S. sex worker, has been begging sex industry to take down her videos because she has changed lives now, and he's a proud mom who does not want her kid to know about her past as sex worker. This happened in the U.S. So, in which there's no ethical tax. She begged the industry to delete her video, but she didn't have any type of response, because this industry, the industry she was under, didn't have any accomplishment in actually deleting her videos. With this ethical tax, we want to guarantee that data protection and transparency to sex workers who not only are still in the field, so still work, so who still are under the threat or probably having their content being used wrongly, but also to retired workers who have changed life and do not want their videos on the internet anymore. If you think about her case, we have something that is clearly saying us that we need an ethical tax that protects the sex workers in the industry. A second stakeholder is consumers, because we have said that even their data could be stolen, and with the tax, we will protect their data as well with the speed and etc. So because of the 3 points that we explained, such as ethical values of sex, effects on the tax, and especially privacy protection of sex workers' well-being, we firmly believe that it is not necessary to abolish this tax. Thank you.
8 minutes and 30 seconds. So, Rami and Stefano are okay? Yes, very well. So let's go to Asia, first speaker from proposition team. When you want, you can start.
Okay. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Italy is a democracy founded on work, which means any type of legal work. That's how we began our debate. How is sex work not, why should sex work not be included in this? And why is it fair that it is taxed and more than an average job? So, I want to begin now with my rebuttals. First of all, your first speaker stated that there's no need to ban porn, but to keep a safe environment in the industry and in society, which is the same thing we are stating. We are not by any means discussing the abolishment of porn, but we are debating the value and of the abolishment of the ethical tax. You state that the purpose of I'll take it later. You state that the purpose of the ethical tax is not to make sex work sound unethical, but it's more than obvious that's what it is. It wouldn't be called ethical in the first place otherwise. Plus, there's no reason to consider sex unethical if not a social stigma. We are not by any means agreeing with the fact that you keep stating that sex is that the purpose of the ethical tax is not to make sex unethical. Absolutely, it wouldn't be called ethical. Then, moving on to another thing your first speaker stated, I take the POI now.
So would you say that a person who produces cigarettes is discriminated just because there is an additional tax on producing cigarettes?
We never stated that by any means. I don't know when did you hear that being stated. That is not what I said throughout my speech. Anyways, moving on to another thing your first speaker stated. There's need to protect the audience in order to create a safe environment in society when it comes to the porn industry. But aren't sex workers a part of society? Don't we need to protect them too? They need protection just as much as the audience. I accept.
How do you think that the government can guarantee safety for sex workers if not through taxes?
I was gonna get into that later. The safety of sex workers is not provided by the government by any means. Porn industry is an industry as any other industry, and as any other industry, the protection of its workers, it's up to the porn industry itself. By not paying the ethical tax, the industry will have more money to provide for the safety of its workers, which must be protected too as a part of our society. As you claim, we must protect society from the risks of porn, which I still don't understand how this is relevant to the motion by any means. Anyways, you said in your first argument was about the ethical value of sex. The porn industry promotes violent fantasies and influences people's perception of intimacy. But first of all, I don't understand how this is relevant to the motion. And anyways, there's a way from the state to prevent this, which is, as we said, the fact that you now need a speed account to access to porn sites. People who can't access to people who let themselves. I take it later. People who let themselves be influenced by by what they see are mainly minors who still don't have a point of view on how the world works, and especially on intimacy most times. So the state is protecting this part of the audience by introducing the mandatory access with a speed account to pornographic content. Therefore, there's no need to pay an ethical tax, and that's why we believe furtherly that it shall be abolished. Then I want to move on to what your second speaker said. The ethical tax does not mean to make sex work unethical, but it protects the audience. And I want to know, in what way does this happen? You never stated how the paying of an ethical tax goes and protects the audience. This was never stated. There was no evidence about it, and I cannot even refute it because you never told me how this works. How does this work? How does the paying of the ethical tax by by sex workers make society safe? In what way is it protected by the government? Because of the paying of an extraordinary tax.
POI.
Anyways, now I'll take the POI.
Thank you. You said that the safeguard of the worker is not the duty of the state, so it cannot be done through taxation. So such a right is not established in the Constitution.
The Constitution states that Italy is a republic, a democracy, which is founded on work, which values work. It does not state that it takes charge of the protection of said workers, because it's up to the industry itself, just as any other industry or any form of working. For example, school has the responsibility to protect its students. It's not up to the state to. Anyways, I wanted also to go back to what your first speaker stated, that in porn industry there are mandatory health screenings for the actors, and by paying the ethical tax they are paying for that too. But what I'm saying is this ethical tax does not in any way provide for that, because these must be provided by the industry. And when the industry doesn't have to pay extraordinary money to the state for the job it does, it has more money to spend on protecting its workers from STDs, for example. It's very risky to not protect workers from these. Lastly, I wanted to talk about data privacy. I do not absolutely understand how ethical tax is in any way valuable when it comes to this. And anyways, our rebuttals strictly rely on our arguments, which are, first of all, the fact that the ethical tax makes sex work unethic, and thus makes it unequal when compared to other jobs. Then the fact that it provides a safer environment for the industry itself, and lastly, the fact that it makes it an equal means for self-maintainment when compared to other jobs. With this, I conclude my speech. Thanks for the attention.
8 and 31. Sound is okay? Yes, she is. And Stefano, are you okay? Oh, just a minute. Okay, now Stefano is okay. And we can go to the third speaker from opposition team. Please take the floor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. If you vote proposition today, you are voting to remove the only structured mechanism that forces a massively profitable, notoriously exploitative industry to pay even a fraction of the real cost it imposes on the people who work in it. My teammates have already done 2 things for you. First, they frame what this ethical tax is, not a punishment for sex workers, but a targeted levy on the porn industry whose revenue is ring-fenced for welfare, health, legal aid, and exit options for performance. Second, they showed you why this is justified in principle and beneficial in practice. Let me structure this around 3 big questions that is round as turned on. So first, is this ethical tax discriminatory or corrective justice? So fairness. Does it hurt or help sex workers themselves? And basically, what kind of world do we create in the long run if we abolish it? So first question, is it discriminatory or corrective? Proposition tried to sell you a very simple story. They said, look, every time you put a special tax label on one category of work, you stigmatize it, you discriminate it. You are literally saying porn is less legitimate than other jobs, so we should get rid of the special tax to normalize sex work. It sounds progressive, but it collapses the moment you actually think about how we treat other harmful or high-risk industries. As we've already said during the first speech, we already accept special targeted taxation when there are specific foreseeable harms. As you said, something unethical becomes unethical when it has harms. We do this with gambling, with polluting industry, and in Italy, we even have a tax on cigarettes, and an additional tax, I mean. Nobody seriously says, if we tax cigarettes more, we are discriminating against smokers as inferior citizens or the producers of smoke. We say there is a predictable social cost. So the people who profit from causing those costs have to pay more into the system that tries to mitigate them. That is exactly what the ethical tax is doing here. The porn industry is not just a normal employer. Saying it systematically creates a cluster of risks that are uniquely concentrated. Revenge porn, non-consensual distribution, long-term employability problems once someone's image is online and forever. I'll take this in a moment. Those harms are not theoretical. They are structured, recurring, profit-enabling. Platforms and producers monetize those images and those risks. I'll take the PI now.
You talked about revenge porn. How is revenge porn concerned with this tax if it's not made by sex workers in the first place?
Well, it could be also made, obviously, by sex workers. With revenge porn, I refer to sex workers who are doing such a practice, or, for example, as you said in the first speech, porn videos which resemble, obviously not producing it, but pedopornography. Continuing that, so no, there is no moral panic or discrimination against sex workers as people. This is the state saying to the companies and platforms, you do not get to turn human intimacy into infinite content without contributing more than the average bakery or call center to the safety net that will catch these workers when things go wrong. That is not stigma. It is just basic fairness. So the second question was, does this tax hurt or help sex workers? Prop tried to claim that any ethical tax ultimately comes out of the pockets of the performers. They say the industry will pass the cost down in lower wages, or actually they say the industry will invest in psychological or clinical studies. There are two big problems with this. First, even if some of the cost is passed through, the ethical tax is one of the few tools sex workers have that is explicitly designed around the needs, rather than the needs of platforms or consumers. The whole point of making is that this money does not just disappear into a generic state budget. It funds free mental health support, legal clinics that actually understand porn contracts, hotlines, shelters that do not judge, and credible exit programs, no thank you, as we've stated through the second speech, for those who want to leave the industry but are trapped by debt, stigma, abusive partners, abusive managers. What you have done was just, through obviously proposing the abolishment, is just shifting guarantee of services from the public taxation to the private. As the first speaker said, the government does not protect the worker. Well, that will mean that the government is actually violating your cherished constitution and civil code, where it is asserted that working conditions must be safeguarded, and such a principle is asserted in both codes, and such a measure, meaning the ethical tax, is thus necessary. Without this tax, no thank you, what is the realistic alternative that proposition has given you? They spoke vaguely about better regulation, stronger labor law, but these are not funded out of thin air. If you abolish a dedicated revenue stream, you are betting that the same governments who already underfund general welfare programs are suddenly going to prioritize porn performers into mainstream budgets. That is just fantasy. If you remove the ethical tax, you remove the one part of money that is politically justified because it is linked to this to the arm. Second, even on the pure short income, Pro is being selective Workers are replaceable. Ethical tax is not just money, it is leverage. It is a recognition that porn economy is structurally risky. If you abolish the tax, you're sending the opposite signal. That porn is just any other industry, and it does not require special scrutiny. So in this second clash, who is really centering sex workers' interests? The side that keeps a dedicated, legally justified mechanism to fund the safety and regulation, or the one that takes and says, trust the market? First and final question, ask yourself, what is more likely to change the material conditions of performance? Symbolic equality with all the workers on a tax form, or concrete services? Services that help you when your face is on thousands of websites you never consented to, or you've consented to, but now you want to re-enter different job market at 35 when a producer violated your contract and you cannot afford a lawyer. Prop never gave a credible alternative of similar scale. They gave you rhetoric about respect and equality, but they never showed you actual institutions that would exist without this tax. So weighing this debate, on this side, you get a symbolic win on the paper and a material loss in the real world. On ours, you accept that porn is not neutral, and you force profit most to pay the protection of those you are exposed. For all these reasons, this House must reject the motion and vote for opposition. Thank you.
8 and 13. Stefan is okay, Swami is okay. So we can go to the last speaker from opposition team, and should be Spano. Yeah? Yes.
Okay, so my speech will start in 3, 2, 1, now. So, honorable judges and esteemed opponents, we have reached the end of this debate, and it is now time to bring everything together to look at the main points of this agreement and to clarify why our position is the most valid one. So, during this debate, three main points of clash have emerged. The first one is safety. The proposition team has stated that a way so achieving safety can be achieved through not having ethical taxes and having more money to provide safety. Money that, as the opposition team said, can be also spent on exploitation to make more money. Opposition team instead sees taxes as a way to ensure safety precautions and controls. So the second point of clash instead is the principle behind ethical taxes. Proposition team says that with this tax, sex workers are discriminated as humans and workers. So therefore, they say that they are depicted unethical. Opposition team instead said that the ethical tax wants to recognize our sex industry is a delicate field. Therefore, it needs more protection, which is guaranteed by this ethical tax. And then the third one, that is equality and equity. Proposition team wants to recognize, say, sex workers as normal workers as we also do, but fails to recognize our sex workers and their industry have special needs that need safeguarding. Opposition team instead wants to acknowledge these differences and does not want to penalize them. Instead, with this text, we acknowledge a more needed protection that is guaranteed by the tax itself. So we also, during this debate, also two different values have emerged. The ethical value of sex and the role of sex workers. The ethical value of sex, in fact, lies in consent, dignity, and responsibility. And these values can just be reached through the ethical taxes, and the role of sex workers that we have analyzed as workers that need to be safeguarded from the risks that their job brings with it through taxes. So your word is a castle made out of sand. It seems nice. It seems right. If you blow on it, it will vanish. We are not building little sand castles. We are building rights. We are building futures. So judges, now this is up to you. Are you going to accept a world where the state becomes blind and sex is just another job? Or are you going to accept the importance of such a sector? And are you going to safeguard it to taxation? That is up to you. Thank you for listening. This is the end of my speech.
4 and 11 seconds. Okay, Stefano is okay. Swami, are you okay? Yes, very well. So let's go to the very last speaker of this debate. So, fourth speaker from opposition team. Please, when you want, go on.
Okay. If everyone's ready, okay. Then my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Panel, in my speech, two main things. Some clash points, in particular the 5 main clash points that we have found in this debate as the opposition team, and then concluding my speech, a clear answer to why we should abolish this tax we are talking today, and a real-life scenario that shows why our position is better and the other team's position doesn't stand. But let's go with order and start with the points of contention of this debate. The first one is about equality. Taken for granted the fact that the opposition team hasn't said in their speeches that they aim to grant equality for the workers on both the moral and economic point of view, we instead, as the proposition team, have gave you a vision of the future where both of those aspects are better, both for the workers and the society by itself. Now, another clash point is about the problem resolution the two teams today have brought. So what does the opposition team tell you? They just say, oh, there's this problem in society, it's bad, and we should solve it. How do they solve it? They don't. They just take the problem and don't say how they do it. They've tried to do it, but their reasoning still doesn't stand because it's inconsistent. What do we tell you as proposition team? Some changes are already being made by the Italian government with some laws that regulate the audience, and also we bring welfare to the workers on top of that. So we have benefits on both sides. The third clash point is about the economical impact of the application of this motion. What do they tell you? They tell you that two things will happen if we apply this motion on the economical point of view. First, there's less money for government, and also there's more exploitation for the actors. So first, we have refuted this many times, but the money that they gain from this tax is very little compared to the whole of taxes that they gain from taxation. And also exploitation wouldn't happen, because if they have more money, the producers, they would invest in better work conditions to earn even more, so they don't have any reason to exploit the workers, and you have already refuted this. Now, moving on to the fourth point of clash. So it is about the definition of ethic. We've given you our definition. An ethical thing is something that does not damage anyone, both the one that does the action and the one that received the action. And taking from granted the fact that the opposition team hasn't given a specific definition of what ethical is, that just given some casual examples about other fields that don't actually have anything to do with the sex industry, but also they haven't shown why our definition is wrong by saying how this industry, the sex industry, damages us. They've just said that it does, but they haven't shown us how and why we should not remove this tax, which should be their position in the first place. And now for the last clash point, which is about protection of workers. What do we tell you as the proposition team? That it's done by companies that have in their interest to protect their workers, that give them money by earning. What do they tell you? That this protection is actually done by the government, but the protection that they're talking about is only the rights protection, not the rest economical point of view of this protection. So the reason doesn't stand following these several points. Now, concluding my speech, we gave you a precise scenario. Now we have inequality in society for workers in sex industry. We give you equality. Now we have a status quo according to us and the opposition team, which is not optimal. What do? We improve it. What does the opposition team do? Nothing. They just criticize today's status quo and the society we live in, and don't give a right image of what we want it to become in the future and how we should obtain this goal. And concluding, if they've said that our reasoning is like a sandcastle, at least it's a castle that is feasible and gives us some better conditions for the future. They don't even have a castle. At least we gave you something that stands and that is better for us in the future. With this, I conclude my speech. Thank you.
4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Applause.
Not just a minute. Okay, let me tell that. Okay. Okay, please open up all your microphone. Thank you.
Whisper.
And yes, please clap your hands. So you know that we are going in another room to establish a verdict, and we will be back here as soon as possible. Okay. Now I am going to recording. Okay, and stop recording. Okay.